What up, Colin?
Hello.
How you doing, brother?
doing good. Doing good. Yeah, big fan of consistency. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have done a great job with that. So you're the founder of Paragraph, which is a crypto native publisher that makes it really easy to publish your ideas, reach readers everywhere, and ultimately unlock new opportunities to earn directly from your network. So we'd love to, I think, spend most of the time on coins, but maybe before we jump into that, do you just want to catch us up on what the last 6 months of Paragraph have entailed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, from the very start, over the past few years, we've been kind of laser focused on three things, right? How do we help writers write, right? How do we help them create content? How do we help them distribute to as many people as possible, right? Publish once, gets blasted out, across the ecosystem. And how do we help writers earn? How do we help them make money? So I think distribution, we've spent a lot of time on, over the past couple of years. We have very deep integrations with Farcaster. You could deliver newsletters to your audience on Web2, but also on chain by XMTP. We have incentivized distribution. We have built-in referral rewards, et cetera. Past 6 months has been really focused on that third pillar, earning, right? How do we help writers earn? So, we've been kind of thinking long and hard about sort of the current methods of monetization in crypto, and in particular on Mirror and Paragraph, where you publish on Paragraph or Mirror. We turned into an NFT, an open edition NFT in particular. Anyone can come along at any time and mint. And effectively, that's patronage, right? You're giving a micropayment to the writer. They receive something in return. They could show it off across the ecosystem. Perhaps there's some other types of utility sort of sprinkled on top. But we've been kind of thinking long and hard about how can we make it sort of more sustainable and repeatable for writers to earn and monetize in kind of a more meaningful way. And we landed on sort of coins as kind of the next evolution of what we're doing for patronage and trying to build sort of that relationship between readers and writers. So happy to dig a little bit more.
Let's dive into how coins work specifically, and then I'm also interested because I think there's a number of teams that have been sort of on this path of open editions or NFTs, Mirror being sort of central to crowdfunding, back in 2018, and then into sort of the open edition meta. And now I think coins and trading and sort of fees that are earned off of that seem to be the most compelling, I guess, to consumers right now. But maybe let's start off with how do coins work on Paragraph, and what's the underlying mechanism there?
Yeah, so coins work on Paragraph. So writer comes onto Paragraph. They have an idea, maybe they have an essay, they have a meme they want to share, maybe they have whatever they want, right? Written content primarily, but ultimately anything. You come onto Paragraph, you publish it, we tokenize it. So we create. We're using a protocol called Doppler, which I think a lot of these other protocols are using, which is built on top of Uniswap. So as soon as you publish a post, we deploy this associated Uniswap pool. We tokenize your content, immediately make it tradable and liquid, and sort of build a market around that. So there's a lot of different, I think, ways that the actual market structure could be built. So we kind of started with one where right after publishing, the writer receives 10% of the supply, vested over a long period of time, vested over a year. And they also earn off every single transaction fee. So right now, we're taking the approach where it's 1% of every single transaction, half of which gets sent to Paragraph, half of which gets sent to the writer. One of the things we want to do very quickly after this is try to increase that. I think 1% is low in general, but again, I think there's a lot of different ways of actually structuring this market. So that's how it works, kind of at a high level.
So what was it that you were seeing with like NFT, the NFT based collecting, or not seeing, that kind of led you to wanting to reinvent the economic model? Was there just not enough of a speculative game there? Yeah, curious.
Yeah, I mean, so there's effectively zero speculation there. I mean, by definition, an open edition mint, you could just come to Paragraph or Mirror and then mint it for the exact same price and infinite supply. So yeah, I mean, we've been thinking a lot about sort of the incentive for people to do this, right? I think that the one that we really want to tap into is patronage. I think in a lot of circumstances, people minted a post because they wanted to help the writer. They liked the idea. Maybe they wanted to show it off elsewhere. They wanted to sort of amp up the dial and kind of increase the distribution. But in practice, like that we haven't really seen a repeatable way for patronage to kind of accomplish that. We've seen sort of I don't know, vertical successes in certain circumstances of people minting a post because they want an airdrop, or others types of kind of speculative behaviors that we don't support in the platform. They're kind of engineering this on top of this kind of non-speculative behavior. So what we've kind of been thinking, or at least the thesis is, like, how can we allow these people that want to trade and want to speculate still do so, still accomplish that, but if it benefits the creator and benefits the writer at every single turn, and still allows readers and still allows supporters to tap into some of these kind of more durable behaviors like patronage, that seems like a win, broadly speaking, right, across the ecosystem. So I think ERC20s, limited ERC20s by definition, I think can accomplish that a lot more. And I think, we announced last week, we're beginning to roll it out. We've already kind of begun seeing sort of early successes of this actually happening, where writers that have typically had zero collects on a vast majority of their posts, they're already starting to earn some amount of money through this kind of secondary market sort of behavior.
And
Yeah,
these coins are around individual posts, correct? And or is there sort of like a publication token?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I really like the idea of publication coins. That's something that we're going to be thinking about, a little bit more deeply. But I think the easiest thing to kind of start with was just kind of doing a clean replacement of NFTs, non-fungible tokens on Paragraph, with coins on an individual post level. I do think that there are different use cases, though. I think having your livelihood and your person tied to a market cap, and then putting that market cap kind of front and center, and then when it goes down into the right, people are going to get pissed and come after you. I think there's real psychological risk there. So that's kind of in contrast to, on a post level, there's nothing like that really, ultimately. And something else I'll say is, I think writing in particular is also very well suited for kind of long-term time horizons, because people reference Paul Graham posts from a decade ago, or Fred Wilson posts from a decade ago, right? So I think there's benefit and kind of different use cases for each. And we'd sort of love to experiment how to best accomplish those, and then ideally also tie them together in some way.
I'm curious how you think about, I guess, looking forward, lots of kind of on-chain tools, introducing, markets for new types of content. And, us as Seed Club, right, we write, we host 11 a.m. 11 a.m. is we post our content on Zora. We have an 11 a.m. Creator coin on Zora. Presumably, we also have weekly newsletters on Paragraph. Those are going to be tokenized. You launch a publication coin. We're going to have a publication coin on Paragraph. Like, how do you think about from like a holistic, brand level, like as Seed Club is, like, I don't know if it's necessarily like the best case scenario that we have 100 different coins. Almost having one or a few is better. So I'm just curious how you think about kind of the holistic level kind of for brands or creators that do things across a bunch of different platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fragmentation is real. I think the brand risk is real of launching all these creator coins and all these types of tokenized media. What I kind of want to see in the ecosystem is specific use cases for these coins on a per platform basis. Like, I'm very weary of calling it creator coins on Paragraph. I would love to call it publication coins, or like, hey, this is a real alternative to paid recurring subscriptions on Paragraph, right? And then launching that and then tying it into sort of the Paragraph ecosystem as a whole. So in that case, like, you'd be able to launch the Zora creator coin, you'd be able to use that on Zora, and hopefully they kind of build sort of more vertical sort of solutions, which they already are doing, I think, built into the Zora app. And then we'd be doing the same on Paragraph. We'd be doing sort of across the ecosystem. I'm like a little doubtful that there's going to be sort of a single creator, like, launch your creator coin here, and then just like there's nothing really built around that. It's kind of up to you to go kind of do cool stuff with it. But I mean, I think we're kind of sort of early in this journey. So I mean, I could be completely off base here.
What's your answer to that question, Josh?
I mean, it's tough. I think from the Seed Club perspective, like, I think having a bunch of our content tokenized and having thousands of those, I think is totally fine. You have some clips go viral. There's some, inherent value in that. But I think it's more confusing to me at the like creator coin publication level, like, the atomic unit of content, and then kind of the Seed Club token, like, those make sense. The kind of abstractions between that, maybe less so.
I think we just start to bundle these things together. Like I think they will just be creatively combined in different ways. And so I'm not sure. I mean, I guess that there's a world where, you know, the Zora becomes Instagram, and there's such an economy going on there that these tokens can sort of stand on their own over there, and you would want to dedicate time and space to that. Same with, Paragraph, and maybe just social consensus arrives around one, and then it will be up to those creators to actually try to drive value back to it. But I think it is sort of probably part of what people are really grappling with when they're all like up in arms around the content coin meta. I think is the root of that is I felt so much safer when there was only, 1,000 tokens that I have an opportunity to. Now that there's a gazillion, I feel destabilized and unclear where to go put my money. And obviously fragmentation is real, and it's challenging from a builder perspective and an investor perspective. So yeah. I guess so. It seems like you're trying to really continue this patronage anchoring even in coins, and I guess what comes up for me there is well, I guess I'm quite curious the underlying intention behind that, because it seems like the speculative game is really at the root of why these individual coins, content coins, are more compelling to the average buyer than maybe an NFT is. And so it feels like you're maybe trying to straddle two worlds here.
Yeah, so we are. I would say we are trying to straddle two worlds here. I'm not convinced that speculation is sustainable over the long term. I think in a lot of circumstances we see price of a token go up and then price come right back down. I mentioned earlier there's psychological impact. I think there's a lot of downsides for doing that. I think patronage or utility or some of these other things that I think a lot of founders in crypto have been trying to chase for a long time now are more sustainable, more durable, right? I also do think that it's possible to have both of those happen at the same time. If you support someone, maybe 70% of the reason why is because you like the writer, but 30% is because if they sort of skyrocket in the future and you're sort of early to a decades long Paul Graham post, you could have sort of a real return there. So I think the question on our mind is like, how do we still allow people to speculate if they wish? Because I think you can't turn a blind eye in that. I think crypto is obviously, very well suited to capital allocation, in particular for speculation. But how do we tap into, as sort of a primary motivator, patronage or other kind of durable things that we think are sort of more sustainable?
Yeah, it's kind of back to this like patronage plus language that I think we saw a lot of like 2 years ago. Yeah, Colin, I'm curious what, if we project this out, coins work, like what some of your kind of weirder ideas for the future of this is. Like I think like 2 weeks ago, I was DMing Reed and I was like, you need coin-based ad units. Like, that's actually like this really effective way to capture the real economic value of the attention that these posts have and drive value back to token. And so I'm curious where your head's at long-term on what this unlocks.
Yeah. So that was actually my first thought. What you just said, I think is probably like the weirdest, but coolest idea we have, where, I think ads or sponsorships when done well, I think are good. I think it's undeniable. So, you could imagine a hypothetical world where slap a bunch of ads on a post or, sponsorships or whatever you want to call them. And then the actual real tangible value from ad conversions or ad clicks or whatever flows back to the actual post coin, increasing the value. That's true attention that you're capturing and converting into value. And then that increases the post coin. So I think trying to drive more actual real economic value to the individual coins beyond like, hey, buy this because price is going to go up, is sort of kind of top of mind for us. Another like kind of interesting idea. I know we're roughly at time, but I really like the idea of remixing content. I think a lot of people riff off of other ideas, right? Like retweets, recasts, quote casts. But I think in long form writing, I think that happens all the time, where again, someone publishes a banger essay a decade ago, it kicks off this vast amount of discussion that happens. Like maybe we should make quote pairs between all the remixed content, boost up the value of the original piece, opens up new avenues of discovery, etc.
Yeah, that's interesting. What the ad unit really brings up, I don't know, it was probably back in the early 2010s. I think it was called The Deck, and there was an advertising product that went after designers and I guess the influencers of that era. And I think it's still visible on Daring Fireball right now, where there's just one ad unit right there, and it was, positioned contrary to the Facebooks and the Googles and the programmatic ad buying. And it was saying for people that have a ton of followers or whose readers have a deep affinity to that person, why would you want to turn over your ads to Google that are just going to siphon off to the scammiest highest payer? Let's have an ad unit that's actually trying to be a lot more than that. So it feels like the space is just ready for something like that, and having the content and distribution, I think, is a precursor for it, which I think you guys have. So excited to see what experiments come next. But Colin, thanks for hanging out with us today, man, and for the update on Coins and Paragraph. Of course, if you want to see Paragraph in action and you're not subscribed to the C Club newsletter yet, you can do that at cclub.com. It is one of the best. It's going to come out in the next 2 days, so you might as well go get on that right now.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, brother.
Peace, Colin.